we are about 4:30 a.m. Been out here messing around. I've got this 403 mocked up. Figuring out what parts I want to use, what I need, and what I want. Making me a list. I like to start putting this thing back together here in the near future. Just tired of looking at it disassembled. No, there's not a crankshaft in there for all them experts that seems to tear them up if they see an engine without a fucking crank in it. That one there has a crank in it, so for all of you out there that worry about such fucking nonsense, there you go. There's a few more of them around here with cranks in them also, but it's not the point of this video. The mock-up is important, really, especially if, for a number of reasons. If you got a lot of fucking parts laying around, a lot of different engines, a lot of them are engines that certain parts go to, and the shit's gonna be sitting around for years. It's best to fucking put that block on a stand, put the heads and the intake and all the shit that's gonna go with that engine. Get it all in one spot. It's a lot easier to store, easier to keep up with. And then all the shit that's not there is labeled in boxes and shit on a shelf, so. But it's a good way to keep up with your parts. I've had this fucking engine disassembled for over 30 years, but I still know where every single part is. I'm thinking about, I originally built this thing, it was years ago. There's been some advancements since then with Olds engines and shit, but I'm still not gonna go trick of the week on this fucking thing. I'm gonna basically keep it like it is. But I had a Streetmaster, the 245 at 50, 295 advertised, and 108 lobe separation, and 560 lift. That's what that fucking thing actually had. It was a Lunati Streetmaster, probably designed in the mid 80s, late 80s. That was a pretty lumpy cam. And it's 403. I got another cam out of a 330 I built years ago. I built a rowdy ass 66 330 Olds. Actually, it's the engine that I ended up using the crank out of it and this engine. But it was a 66 Olds 350. I built it first. It had forged crank, forged rods, forged pistons and shit. And I ran a comp, an old 305 Magnum hydraulic cam. That's what I ran in that 330. And I think it was a 305 advertised, 253 at 50, a 110 lobe separation, and I think it was a 540 lift. But I had that in a 330. Had like number 4 heads that had 455 valves put in them and ported and shit and milled, and it was about 11.5 to 1 compression engine. Had a Holley Street Dominator intake on it. The intake runners were opened up almost to the big block size. They were like a 1/8 of an inch shorter, but they were pretty well hogged on out for a small block head. They were 330 small block Olds heads. But it had adjustable valve train in it and shit. Holley Street Dominator single plane intake, and a 750 double pumper. That fucking engine ran quite well, actually. It pulled over 7 grand like it wasn't shit. I think I shifted it 72, 7400 more than a few times. And that was a big hydraulic cam. But that's a late 80s Magnum cam. And I still got that fucking cam. I thought I lost the lifters years ago, but I found the lifters the other day. And they're all in a lifter box. It's marked what lobe they came off of and shit. So I still got that old comp cam 305 Magnum stuck in a box. So I'm thinking about using it in here. It'd be about 10 degrees more duration at 50. About 10 more advertised. A couple degrees wider lobe separation. And about 20 thousandths less lift. But it seemed like it hit a meaner fucking lick than that Streetmaster cam did. I mean, that Streetmaster cam sounded damn good and it run damn good. This engine was making around 460 horse with it. 435, 440 pounds of torque. But it was running pretty fucking good. It was mid-7s in the 8th mile. With basic shit. These are the 73 455J heads. They've been milled and shit. I got this fucking Moroso oil pan. It's either a 7 or an 8 quart. I can't remember now. It's been so fucking long. Hell, it might be 7 quart and 8 with the filter. Which I'd never run that much fucking oil in it. I ran like 6 quarts. And it was just fine. But I'm gonna strip the paint off that and wire brush that fucker down and clean it up and resurrect it and put it back on there. So got all that shit. And my reused heads, they're milled down to 72cc chambers. I'm going to go with another set of them 6cc valve relief Keith Black pistons. It'd be about 10.75 to 1 compression. Approximate. Got the old GM Quadrajet heat shield on there. That was, you've seen them on a lot of old Pontiac muscle cars and shit back in the day. But you could get them with Oldsmobiles too. I got a a Marine 454 big block Chevy Marine Quadrajet on there now. I might see how it acts with that. This air cleaner, I kind of like it, trying to go for the sleeper look. Stock, but not quite. And what this is the fucking, the housing itself, the base, is off my 84 Camaro Z28. It come with a L69 HO 5 liter. It had that twin snorkel air cleaner on it, and had the fucking ram air tubes and shit. That was pretty high performance shit for that era. But they had a fucking, like a 2-inch filter in here, and this was all the way down to here. So it was only getting air in through these snorkels here. So old school trick. That's a truck filter. It's like an inch, same diameter, but it's an inch taller. Put that on there and you open that up and you equal the power of a typical open element air cleaner, and still have the basically stock look. I've seen dyno tests where they run a stock air cleaner closed off and shit, and then just flip the fucking lid or put a taller filter in it, pick up substantial power, like 20, 30, 40 horsepower, depending on how, the more power the engine makes, the bigger the difference it's going to make. If you got a 700 horse engine, it's liable to make a 70, 80 horse fucking difference. But running that air cleaner like that, that base has got a nice contour that goes into the carburetor. It's pretty nice, actually. Got the taller air filter to get that big gap in there to let that air in that bitch. But that gives the illusion of a stock air cleaner, but that fucker it'll work. I might use it on here. When I did have this engine running, I had just a 14-inch chrome Moroso air cleaner on it. It matched these valve covers. Some old tall chrome Morosos. They're getting hard to find. I think they were discontinued years ago, so they're getting kind of rare. I guess they sold enough of them. There's a few badass Oldsmobile valve covers out there, but these are probably some of my favorites ever made. I've used them on numerous. I built quite a few Oldsmobile engines years ago. And I always liked them tall Morosos. They just look good. This fucking valve cover breather here, that's off a 1966 425 Tornado engine. 66 Tornado, so that's an old Oldsmobile breather from back in the day. And it just happens to fit them 1.25 inch holes. So I've been using that thing for years. And this thing's got, I built it. There wasn't a whole lot of shit made for these things back in the day, but I built as budget as I could and still got the job done. There's the key with Oldsmobile, factory pedestal rocker arms. Fucking limited Them trunnions and shit. They're fucking made out of aluminum. They break. Factory rocker arms break. It's best to go ahead and bite the bullet and put screw-in studs in there. Guide plates. Roller rockers. That's comp cam. Shit. 1.6 roller rockers. I believe them are comp cam springs too. Double springs. But them ain't the most high-end rockers. I think they're advertised to be good to about 400 pounds of open valve spring pressure. But with a hydraulic flat tappet cam, you don't want nowhere near that. You'll flatten your fucking cam out in no time. About the most you're gonna want is about 350 pounds. I think that's about what these are. They're about 350 pound open, about 140 pound closed. I think they're 1.800 installed height, or 1.85 installed height. And those are 155 diameter springs. But you set your shit up like that, and it makes it like a Chevrolet valve train. Just adjust your rockers and shit, just like you would a small block Chevy. Just as simple. You gotta take your push rod length tool and figure out your push rod length and shit, and make sure you get the right exact length, which I did. This old motherfucker ran good. Those are some ancient, they're either Headman or Cyclone. For some reason I want to say Headman, but on the other hand I want to say fucking Cyclone. It might be old Cyclone. They don't make Cyclone headers anymore. Those headers there are from the late 80s. So they're pretty fucking old. Still in pretty good shape though. Totally usable. They fit a G-body and like 70 to 81 Firebirds and shit with small block O's. So they fit a multitude of rides, but that's the headers. When I did have this engine in a car, that's the headers I had on it. I think they're 1 3/4 inch primary and a 3-inch collector. So they're sufficiently sized for a small block Oldsmobile. They won't ever see the high side of 6,500 RPM. Check Comp 305 Magnum in here. It's a hydraulic flat tappet cam, but don't let that shit fool you. It's a rowdy fucking cam. Back in the day, like back in the 80s, they were a pretty popular bottom of the page cam for like street strip cars, for something you was gonna still drive around in. Throw you a 305 Magnum in your shit, and it definitely got people's attention. And that 330 was a fucking beast with it. But this 403 was, your cubes will come in at 409. So this be 408 or 409 cubic inches actual displacement. So it'll tame that 305 Magnum a little bit, but it's still pretty rowdy. And it's an old late 80s comp cam, back when they still made them out of top-notch materials and shit, and they made shit to last forever, which that fucking cam probably ain't got 2,000 miles on it. Been sitting in a box for decades. It's already broken in. I got all the lifters. Got them marked exactly what lobe they went on. So, I believe I made up my mind. I'm going to try that one in here this go around. Just keep it old school. Them old flat tappet cams, they'd last forever. Ain't like that Chinese shit they're making nowadays that you got a 50-50 shot if the fucker survives break-in. Back in the 80s, you just throw a cam in your shit and fire it up and fucking let her rip. Didn't even really, break-in wasn't really that big a thing. I mean, you let it run for a few minutes, but shit's done become a whole ritual now. These are pretty good old engines. I'm itching to put it back together. I ain't fucked with an Oldsmobile engine in longer than I want to think about. Might as well start with this 403. I'm going to drag one of my 455s out and put that on the next agenda. This old engine here, it was a pretty damn good unit. Daily driver, drive it to the track, run mid-sevens, drive it home. The fucker sounded good too. Big Lunati cam in there, 3-inch pipes. Which I had the old top 10 shootout Flowmaster 3-inch mufflers on it. They were the shit back then. But it sounded pretty damn good. I'd run it in full street trim. This, they make all the shit. My 455, I had Harlan Sharp roller rockers and shit in it. See, I just tried to build this 403 on a budget. It was just an experiment, really, even back then, because I was pretty caught up in the 455s and 425s. And the window mains kind of spooked me, so I wasn't really wanting to make a whole lot of power with this fucking thing. But it definitely surprised me. And it said it never blew up, so knock on wood. That son bitch held together. And fucking just fucked that piston up, and that was that. But yeah, it's time to knock the dust off this old unit and put some fresh paint on it and get her back in tip-top shape. Get it running and just put it on a dolly and stare at it for a couple of years. But I'd feel better if it was running. This shit's kind of like an old member of the family. Get attached to them. It's like your fucking kids or something. But there it is, the old 403, fixing to come back from the dead.